Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Buyahi. Coming up in today's show. Anger grows over a video purportedly showing Turkish-backed rebels abusing the corpse of a female Kurdish fighter. Our reporters spoke to women fighters from the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces. Israel issues deportation notices to African asylum seekers saying they must leave or be forcefully removed. And Egyptian officials hope that recent archeological finds could tempt tourists back to the land of the pharaohs. But first, a video purportedly showing Turkish-backed rebels abusing the mutilated body of a female Kurdish fighter has sparked outrage amongst Syrian Kurds. Well, the footage has emerged amid Ankara's ongoing offensive against the Kurds in Syria's northern Afrin region. Our journalist spoke to Kurdish and Arab women fighting on the side of the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
A video unbearable to watch.
Watch closely, you PKK pigs.
Shouting God is great. Syrian rebels supported by Turkey show the lifeless body of a Kurdish fighter. Barin Kobani is naked and mutilated. The rebels have been accused of cutting off her breasts, which they have denied. The video has sparked fury in the north of Syria.
Not the Islamic State group, nor Erdogan and his cronies will break our spirit. We'll fight until our last breath. We will avenge Barin's death.
Supported by the West, thousands of young Kurdish and Arab women in the Syrian Democratic Forces are fighting against the Islamic State terrorist group.
We're following the path of our martyrs, Irene, Avista and Barin. We're training and fighting to assert the role of women.
The SDF have put up a fight against jihadist militants. Now they consider Syrian rebels backed by Ankara as their #1 enemy.
Our enemies are monsters. They want to crush women and make them become their slaves. But we're not going to let them.
There are lots of us. There are training camps like this across the region.
In the SDF, fighters killed in combat are considered martyrs. Photos of Barin Kobani bring back memories. In 2012, Azmin was taken hostage by al-Qaeda in Syria. She was freed in exchange for the body of a commander.
They didn't rape me, but they electrocuted me to make me talk. They put out cigarettes on my skin and they hit me. It was really awful, but I didn't give in.
Barin Kobani's name is known throughout the Kurdish region of Syria. Women in the SDF in Afrin say they're ready to avenge her death.
Now, Israel has begun issuing deportation notices to African asylum seekers, demanding they leave the country with $3,500 or face forceful deportation or even imprisonment. Well, last December, the Knesset passed a bill authorising the government to proceed with the move. The first wave of notices were handed to men without families, as France 24's Thomas Waterhouse now explains.
Marawi Zoud is one of 38,000 male African asylum seekers who'll be receiving this document from the Israeli government, one which outlines in black and white a stark ultimatum: either leave Israeli shores before the end of March or face imprisonment.
If I don't return to Rwanda or to Eritrea within 60 days, they'll take me forcefully to jail.
The first of these eviction notices have already been dispatched, sparking long queues outside immigration centres as migrants race to get their asylum application rubber-stamped before the deadline expires. But their chances are slim. Out of the 6,800 requests that have been reviewed, just 11 applications have been accepted. The plan was first approved by the Knesset back in December, with the government keen to crack down on what it sees as illegal migrants.
We have no obligation to keep illegal work infiltrators who are not refugees. They will be deported to another country.
The government's website outlines the plan in more detail. As well as an envelope containing $3,500 in cash, officials will also help migrants to obtain the necessary documentation and give them a plane ticket to a so-called safe destination back in Africa. Many agree with the Interior Minister's view that Israel's first priority should be its citizens and not migrants.
Not one of them is a refugee. They're all infiltrators, and they're here to stay. How? They have lots of children. Every woman between the age of 6 and 60 is pregnant.
The backlash to the plan has, though, been strong and continues to grow. In this state that was first created as a safe haven for persecuted Jews, local pilots have already refused to fly planes carrying deportees, and Holocaust survivors have sent an open letter to the Prime Minister pleading with him not to push on with this policy.
I am ready to do whatever I can do and go as far as I can go to show that this is not the Jewish thing to do, it's not the human thing to do.
Many of these African migrants fled to Israel to escape poverty, persecution or conflict in their homelands. These words in chalk on the ground read, "We're not giving up, we're not signing," with some preferring prison in Israel to deportation.
At least 29 Iranian women have been detained for removing their headscarf during protest against the country's mandatory hijab rules. Taking off a veil in public has been illegal since the Islamic Revolution in 1979. This week, President Hassan Rouhani waded into the controversial debate. He released a 3-year-old report indicating that almost 50% of women resent the government telling them what to wear. Shona Bhattacharya explains.
In the middle of traffic, this Iranian woman has taken off her headscarf and is waving it on a stick. An act of rebellion that was filmed and posted online late January. Incidents like these have been taking place more and more. Encouraged by a dissident living in the United States, every Wednesday, dozens of young city-dwelling women defy the religious leaders in power. The photos have gone viral on social networks. A few months ago, one of the pioneers of the movement agreed to speak to reporters. She arrived with her hair uncovered, but wore a headscarf during the interview to avoid arrest.
Please let us take off this scarf. I want the government to hear me, to listen to me as a Persian girl.
In the last few years, women have taken a more relaxed approach to the veil, especially in larger, less conservative cities. But the issue has come to the surface again since protests against the government and the economy in January. A new generation of Iranians are expressing their views more boldly.
This is tied to what we can call the modernization of society, the fact that the individual counts in Iran now. People believe individual rights should be respected.
Early February, 29 women were arrested. Wearing a veil is required by the law, but times are changing. Half of Iranians were against policing what women wear back in 2014. That's according to a study from that period that was released by Hassan Rouhani's office. A timed message from the president that pits him squarely against the policies of religious conservatives.
Now, for centuries, archaeologists have pondered over the secrets of ancient Egypt. Near Cairo recently, they discovered an ancient tomb believed to belong to a high-ranking priestess. Just months before, they located a secret enclosure inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. Egypt's officials hope the finds can tempt tourists back to the country.
For 2,500 years, the bodies of thousands of high-ranking pharaohs have laid here in the shadow of the pyramids at Giza. In this cemetery, archaeologists have recently discovered the tomb of yet another, a priestess known as Hetpet. The colourful walls of her burial chamber are fortunately still intact.
Here we have an illustration of an orchestra. It's something that's very rare.
Egyptologists will now decipher the exact meaning of these centuries-old paintings. Almost 2,000 years after the death of the last pharaoh, authorities continue to announce new finds, like this statue of Ramses II, unearthed last year in the middle of a residential neighbourhood. Measuring nearly 8 meters long, it's exactly like the one standing proud in the famous Abu Simbel temples. For some archaeologists, these recent finds could well be just the tip of the iceberg.
Every king had to build here, make statues, temples, obelisks, everything.
But of all the mysteries that cloud modern-day Egypt, the most fascinating must surely be that of the pyramid of Cheops. Just a few months ago, experts armed with scanners came across a colossal hidden chamber big enough to hold a passenger jet. To find out what's inside, they plan to drill a 3-centimetre hole and slide in a robotic device. Some experts have rubbished the importance of this discovery, but for Egyptian officials, it's key to preserving the legend of the pharaohs. Last year, the number of history-hungry visitors doubled, even if the tourism figures are nowhere near what they were before the revolution.
And finally, Lebanon has put several ancient sculptures on display following their recent return from the US. Now, the artefacts which were stolen during the Lebanese civil war were unveiled at the Beirut National Museum on Friday. Their return comes as the global fight strengthens against antiquities smuggling. A curator at New York's Metropolitan Museum spotted 3 of the sculptures and identified them using ArtLoss, the world's largest stolen art database. Well, that's it for this edition of Middle East Matters. Don't forget you can get our latest news on both Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching. See you at the same time next week.
Inside the Americas, presented by Jeannie Godula.
From North America to the southern tip of Patagonia, join us for a look at the latest political, economic, cultural and social news from the Americas.
Inside the Americas on France 24 and France24.com.